Hi, and welcome to the Feel Good Always podcast. I'm Becky Bradley, and this is real stories of love, connection, and remembering who we are. I'm here today with my friend Mark Cohn. Welcome, Mark. Yes, I'm so glad that you're here. Today, we're going to be talking about really some intergalactic timelines. Mark is just this amazing human being that I met along this path that he really embodies everything that we're talking about here on the Feel Good Always podcast. He lives it, breathes it, and is a walking around on earth example of what I am sharing here. So if you're new to this podcast was born out of my daughter, Kira Bradley. She was 15 years old and she was in a fatal UTV accident. And when that happened, I was really my consciousness expanded, my connection to her, really to everything and everyone. It was like an activation point and really just showing me that we are connected beyond space, beyond time, beyond physical death, but so much more than that. And she's really directed me to many people, including Mark. That's how Mark and I meet. And just to do this podcast, to share this podcast, all of this information for all of the humanity that is really in this massive collective awakening that both Mark and I are witnessing, a part of. Everyone that is listening is a part of that. If you are here listening, I do not believe it's by accident. You found us for a reason. So I'm really excited. So, Mark, I would like to read a bio that I created for you. And I always say that we know that these bios are just a little piece because we are not these identities. We're so much more than that, but it is still really beautiful, all of the things about you. So I'm going to read that first. And then we'll get started hearing all the beautiful things that you're going to share today. Mark Cohn, he is someone who truly lives what he teaches. For many years, he was a guide in Sedona, leading people on hikes, teaching through the land itself, and helping others reconnect with nature as a living teacher. I was lucky enough to know him not just by through his work that he was doing, but as a friend, and to share real adventures where we don't just make plans, we simply surrender to the present moment and trust where it will take us. Mark is a spiritual counselor, a timeline alchemist, and futurist. But what stands out most to me is the way he listens to the truth through his own body and his own knowing. He teaches that when the body is functioning in alignment, it becomes our most powerful tool for discernment, able to
Mhm.
feel what is true, what is fear, and what is not in alignment. He often speaks about asking God to help him know the truth and receiving that knowing somatically and not intellectually. Mark is also sober, deeply embodied, and grounded. His background includes anthropology, environmental education, and work in the national parks, monuments, and museums. His interest in non terrestrial intelligence began in 1995 alongside a lifelong curiosity about consciousness, timelines, and what it means to live beyond fear based storylines. Mark fully embodies love, oneness, and the energy of Feel Good Always. When I first met him, or actually the first conversation I had with him on the phone, he told me he loved me within really about 5 minutes of talking to him. And that simple act taught me something I know I carry forward, that love does not need to be earned, explained, or delayed. His work is about helping people remember that they are the creators of their own reality and that fear based timelines don't need to be fed, and that if something isn't love, it is simply a cry for love, which I know comes from the Course of Miracles.
Mm.
So, welcome, Mark. Yay.
Thank you. Thank you, Becky. I'm so grateful. I've been getting excited about this podcast for several days now, and I'm so grateful to see you. This is so who you are. By the way, if you're on YouTube, I want you to like and subscribe to this channel. It's super important that we get this message out to as many people as we possibly can. And liking, but subscribing to this channel and then liking this podcast really, really helps out the cause for all of us to awaken quicker than it would be if we didn't get the message out. So if you could do that, it's super simple. I've subscribed to so many channels over the years, and I've never deleted one. So why? Because well, I love to love. Let's start there.
I'm like, did Kira put you up to this?
Yeah, I love to love. So I do have to say this. Becky and I said this off screen, but I did actually decide. I got my meditation chair, and I just asked Kira because I have conversations with her from time to time, or I just get downloads and I know it's from her. But I said, took a deep breath, settled in, said, Kira, please be with your mom and I while we do this podcast this morning. And then I took another deep breath and I settled in, and I heard it's just as clear as Becky and I are talking right now. I heard, well, who do you think set up this podcast this morning? And anyway, Becky goes, yeah, that sounds like what she'd say. So
Yeah.
it truly
I constantly say that, like, on this podcast, that I'm not really in charge of who is going to be on it, but, yeah, we surrender, right? Over and over and over that you are on at the perfect time for alignment, for us moving into these higher levels of consciousness, and that as long as we continue to surrender and ask for direction, we receive it, and really on a mass level. So I know you live in Sedona, so I wanna just say that I met you, we have a mutual friend, Mary Louise, and I talk a lot about I have this board that, it's a pendulum, and that was a way that I was connecting with Kira, right, after she died, she was spelling out word for word. I share those channelings on this podcast, and the person that really created that board, her name is Mary Louise. And so I was working with her, and she knew I was going to Sedona. And so that's how she connected us. And at the time when she connected us, I was getting a lot of synchronicities. So you were pieces of other people were coming to me and other things were coming to me. So you were bringing me information about really the Palladians, which are extraterrestrial beings, and there was a lot of synchronicity. So I knew I was supposed to meet you, and then of course I meet you, and we just can't. We talk for hours and hours on our first meeting and it felt almost like being in another dimension. Yes, it did. And you had kind of met Kira ahead of time, several weeks ahead of time, ahead of meeting me, which is really amazing.
Mhm. Yep. Now, how that came about was Mary Louise, who, by the way, I also call her by her, she kind of has a spirit name, Ahana. But
Hana.
she and I happened to speak. Ahana and I spoke, and she had mentioned you and about your daughter crossing over. And my I mean, I've known this inside of my vessel, and you talked about me using the body. Our body's the greatest instrument that we can ever possess, ever. There is no technology. And by the way, I love this technology that we have today, but there's no technology that surpasses the vessel itself. Our vehicles, as the Pleiadians refer to a body, temples, the Hindus, and Jesus called it a vessel. But these bodies are the best instrument for tuning in to what? Other frequencies. And everything exists as a frequency. And I was starting to connect with Kira, and I thought, and she's very kind of fun, mischievous a little bit in her personality, but she's also super direct, like direct in what it is she's trying to convey. And when I tuned in, I said, "Oh wow!" So let's just say what a lot of people know. People use the buzzword multidimensional. People go, "Oh yeah, we're all multidimensional people." Um, Not everybody realizes what they're saying when they say that, but if you exist in multiple dimensions, and let's just say third, fourth, and fifth dimension in this vessel, imagine that we also exist in the sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th, 11th dimension in other vessels. And I mean other bodies in some frequencies or densities, like the higher densities. We can have a body or not have a body. We can tune in to making a physical manifestation of a body or not, but we exist. I mean, I know I exist as a fifth dimensional, solid fifth dimensional, expecting to go to a seventh dimensional Pleiadian female body on a ship up above us. I'm 100% confident to say that. Why? Because I feel it inside my vessel. And I connect with my higher self. And I use the word self as in selves because we exist in dimensional levels above other bodies. So circling back to connecting with Kira, I've gotten downloads or messages that she's part of the Galactic Federation of Worlds, or the GFL, or the Galactic Federation of Light, and that she came here for a brief time to do just what she did for you, to have you have this beautiful, beautiful soul come through you, teach you all this stuff, and then now have you teaching the stuff that she's giving you from the other side. We are I'm hearing from inside my body and on the outer reality, because my I think the outer reality is nothing more than a reflection of my vessel. And we are hearing, and I say we as in other people that can validate this, that this is the year where 100% before the end of the year, we will confidently know that not only most people know that we're not just alone in this universe, but that this planet and all the people here have been helped by higher dimensional beings. Well, just go to the Bible. Arcturians, Syrians, and Andromedans, these people are in the Bible, are Pleiadians, excuse me, Syrians and Arcturians. These are people that came down from above in the Bible and helped humans in times of crisis, people from other places. You can call them angels. Matter of fact, my dad would rather me call them angels. He doesn't like the word extraterrestrial or alien or whatever, which I don't believe in the word alien, but I do believe that these people have been helping us for eons through multiple cataclysms that the surface of this planet has gone through. And why? Because when you get to higher dimensional levels, you realize that there's only one thing going on here, and that's just pure love. Like we're all in this together. Everybody is. And at higher densities or dimensional levels, they know that we're them. So they don't even have a question about like, oh, these are other people. There's no separation in their story. We're living a dense separation story right now. Why? Just for fun. Why not? If we're immortal humans or immortal souls having these human experiences, why wouldn't we come here to have some fun and learn something, and can keep doing this over and over again? And what I feel that we're all doing is raising the frequency of this planet's vibration. Why? She wants to be a fifth dimensional person too. And we are the race of people who will do this with her. So anyway, there's my connection to the earth. I was just on a hike yesterday that you and I both love, Sugarloaf. I was at the top of it with another friend who's out here visiting from New Hampshire. She was here just last March, and she just says, "Oh my goodness, how do you do this?" I said, "It's being done for me. I don't do anything. I just show up. I do, excuse me, I do surrender my vessel every single morning with two separate prayers. One of them comes from the Course in Miracles. This holy instant would I give to you, be you in charge, for I would follow you, certain that your direction brings me peace, or gives me peace is what it says. But I modify that. So I just say, this day I give to you, Holy Spirit, be you in charge, for I will follow you, certain that your direction gives me peace. And it's just like I get to move Mark out of the way, and then my day's done for me. The Pleiadians, and I've been aligning with the Pleiadians since I read a book called Bringers of the Dawn back in 1994, 95. There it is. Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
I brought it because I knew we'd talk about it. So I have Bringers of the Dawn, which
yeah.
was coming to me. So you're going to talk about this, but what I want to share about the synchronicities of this is that when I talked about, so my friend Andrea, who's
Mhm.
been on this podcast, she's talked about the Galactic Council of Light. We talked about that on the podcast. That what happened for me, I had no idea what this meant. I'd never heard of it before. And I started seeing it in books, in social media posts. Andrea came to me and told me that Kira sits on the Galactic Council of Light. And when I
Mhm.
met you, you said the same thing. So what that's what I say when people, I'm not looking for proof. I'm just sharing that with people because for me, those were the things is that the information was coming to me from everywhere, right? to teach me that. And this book, Bringers of the Dawn, multiple people were talking about. And then, of course, you start mentioning this book, which I would love you to share about Bringers of the Dawn. You were just about to, but I wanted to just share the book, which I will link for people. But
Mhm.
go ahead and share.
Um, so my mother swears she never bought the book. My brother, back in 1990, I'm going to use the word 3 or 4. He comes to me. I meet him at my mom's house, and he comes up to me with that book, and he goes, "I just went through this book, and you need to read this." And I'm like, "Okay." I said, "Wow, this is kind of cool." I looked at the back of it. I'm like, "Pleiadians." Yeah, I said, "I don't know what a Pleiadian is, but I'll read the book. I trust that, that you're saying." And I said, Where did you get it?" And he goes, "Mom's library." Now, my mother loved going into Borders bookstore, buying a cup of coffee and walking around and just looking at all the books that are available. She was a teacher, and we know that she bought books that she probably never read. She just liked buying books, and she had like bookcases and bookcases of books. And my brother said he found it in her bookcase. I don't think he read the whole thing. He told me, he goes, I kind of went through it, but I looked at it, and he goes, I knew you needed to read this. And when I read this thing, and I had to read it slowly, like sometimes I got 1 or 2 or 3 paragraphs in the evening, and my eyes were drooping because the frequency is so high that it would make me tired. Matter of fact, that's a lot of times if I'm actually in a space and I believe I'm being visited by people who I can't see. Matter of fact, there's people in this room that I can't see, but there's people
Hmm.
here. And why? Just because we don't have a dense vessel doesn't mean that we aren't everywhere. You know that from Kira's experience, that she's always here. Whenever you need her, you can call, and she's here. So
And
that's
she could
what
be
I.
with you at the same time and with all of her friends, and which
Yeah,
all of us can do this, you know? And this is what
correct.
we've been taught. All of us are
Mhm,
multidimensional. We're in these dense beings that make us think that we're just here having this one experience. So you're talking about, yeah, that you found this book, it found you essentially,
yep.
and I relate to that. And anybody that's listening, as you start to read these texts, whatever spiritual text finds you, or a text like this one is about Palladians. There was also, when I came to Sedona and met you, the book of Ra, the Law of One, found me, which also is channeled information from an extraterrestrial, which is, as Becky the human, I barely understand what they're talking about, but
Mhm,
I would feel it in my body, like you said, and also that it might put you to sleep. That it's such, and it's not that I'm getting tired because it's boring. It's because it's like, wow, this is really high frequency.
mhm. Yeah, I had to take it in slow doses. So I admit that I hadn't read a book in a really long time. By 1993 or 94, I hadn't read a book in a really, really long time, not since high school. And it took me 18 months to finish that book. Then after I finished it, I think I actually read it again in about a month. So I was able to process that. But what I can say, there's another author by the name of Barbara Handclough.
Hmm.
She wrote a book called The Pleiadian Agenda. She was channeling it. She wrote it. And I remember seeing, and I bought it back in 1996. I think it came out, or 97, 96, 97. I saw her on a podcast, and she said, I didn't even understand any of the stuff I was channeling. I just wrote down what was read. She goes, and I finally reread that book. I think it was in the year 2010. And she goes, and my new book is actually, it made sense. I understood what it said. But the same thing, I now understand information that I read that made no sense to me at the time. But what I can say is that the words activated something. They fired codes in my vessel. They activated things that actually took a while to process. But once I got the information into my body, um, God took over. And I'm using the word God as even this technology that I'm driving around called Mark. Um, and I say that in a comical way, but even the body that I use temporarily, it's it's a high design vessel. It has so much going on inside of it that we just don't know. But I can say that even the Pleiadians say this dormant DNA, they don't call it junk. There's no such thing as junk DNA. It's dormant. We will actually go from two-stranded to 12-stranded DNA in my lifetime. I'm expecting by 2033 to be activated to where this vessel operates on 24 helixes and 12 strands of activated DNA. And at that time, we'll all be able to practice things like telepathy, things that we're already starting to move
Yeah.
into right now. But circling back
Yeah.
to, I also read her other book, Earth. Those two books changed everything. Those two books changed me. I didn't, it was like I got an instruction manual for being a human. Once I understood what I was here for, then I've just been gobbling up information ever since. Kind of like David Wilcock. And I got on a rampage. I read dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of books from 1995 to the year 2001. Just kept like every time I would see one. And by the way, I can read a book, if I'm focused in, well, I listen to a book in less than a week now. I listen to books. I don't really read stuff anymore. I listen to it on my head.
You have a wealth of information coming through you at all times. I mean, to sit with you, the amount of information that you have. And it started with the bringers of the dawn. That's really what activated you. And the Palladians. And you talked about Barbara Handclough, which I'm actually reading her book, The Alchemy of Nine Dimensions, right now. Same thing. It's very high vibrational. And so for what happened with me is that I started to wake up in the sense that I was experiencing and really really wild synchronicities. I'm very used to it now, but all I have to do is think something and then there it is, and then it would more and more and more and more and more, and it's until now it's just like it doesn't. I'm more used to it, but it was that telepathy, the having this co-creation with the universe or with my outer world. And none of this was stuff that I read about. It was just happening. And so then when I was reading these books, the ET stuff, which I mean, me, Becky Bradley, had no experience with any of this. And it all kind of found me at the same time, which was a little unsettling because one of the things was that I was, essentially taken up in a ship, which, these are things that like Kira shared with me. And I remember this was like 3 months after she died. I was out walking with my family on a hike. It was Easter. And I heard what sounded like it really sounded like a spaceship or a huge bird. And we all kind of were like, wait, what was that? And then we just kept going. And then fast forward, I meet you 6 months later. That's when you start talking about the Palladians. I have no experience with any of this, but all this information finds me. You start talking about the Palladians. I'm in Sedona. I'm in a bookstore, the Center for New Age bookstore, and I pick a book and I end up picking the Book of Ra, which is, I had no idea at the time, but it's this channeled information from extraterrestrial entity. At the same time, my friend Samia, who lives in Idaho, her daughter has also, transitioned, and she also receives information from her daughter. And her daughter, at the same moment as I'm buying this book, tells her, talk to Ra. I'm like, wow. So we were getting a lot of simultaneous stuff. And I read the book, and that's kind of like activated something in my mind. And then I remembered what had happened on Easter 6 months earlier. It was like I wasn't ready at that point. And then Kira, along with Mary Louise, was able to share with me with a lot of information. Like, what does that mean? Well, for me, It was really them feeding me energy or light codes so that I could experience this dimensional shift that I experienced, where I was experiencing more and more connection. And I was a little overwhelmed by this because, wait, what? Like, I'm an ETs, like what? And Kira actually told me at the time, because I was able to use the board and she was spelling out word for word. Once she sensed my fear, she said, "Tell Mary Louise to stop talking to you about that."
Mm.
Took about a couple weeks and I was able to integrate these new, I mean, so much was happening so fast. And but it was happy, that the alignment of meeting you and you being connected to that, and a bunch of us, not just me, a bunch of my people around me, these same things were happening. And actually, this is probably only the second time that we really talked about this on the podcast. And I'm really grateful to have the opportunity to do it. But it was just one of those things, like, because I live in a dense reality, so I have to build trust that these things are real, And so my life was showing me that these things were real. And yes, I absolutely have no question at this point that we are being helped, that, Kira sits on the Galactic Federation of Light, and really that we've moved into these higher levels of consciousness. It is done. We're just walking towards it, which is something that you share a lot. And it is a feeling inside. It is a feeling beyond what we've been told our entire lives, these belief systems that we hold. And, I do exactly as you do, which is I surrender every single day. I don't try to think that I know, even though I do have a deep knowing about things. It's like, this is what I know in this moment. And what I know is it's a beautiful feeling that's being shared with us, right? But it is so true. Like, that those ETs helped me. That was one of the first days that my family and I felt some peace. And it was unexplainable peace. Well, we were being helped with these beings. Do I remember what? I don't know. I don't need to know what happened. All I know is it was a shift that doesn't make sense in the physical world, because we are not in a physical, we are in a spiritual world. Like you said, I'm just here sharing that message for whoever needs to hear a piece from you and I today. And then they
Mm.
go get the pieces from the rest of their lives, because everybody's having their, right. Like, I love how you always say, this is just what I'm just sharing one person's perspective, right? And you embody all of this, that you're getting it from, you talked about disclosure that's most likely going to happen this year, but you started this journey of connection that was brought to you, 30 years ago, and trusting but not grasping, right?
Yes. BAM. I'm gonna use that acronym BAM. I like that, breaking apart the matrix. BAM.
Yes.
Um, that's what I heard from from our higher selves. Kira's one of them, but from our higher selves, everybody on this planet has always been guided. If you get something out of this podcast, I'll make one other suggestion. Get a book called Angels in My Hair by Lorna Byrne. Lorna Byrne explains she's seen angels since she was an infant, always sees angels. She sees everybody's guardian angel and other angels. They're just everywhere. She says there's more angels on this planet than there are humans. And God did that purposely because he knew humans would need a lot of help here. And we do. And people have forgotten to ask. So her description is that they're all just standing around doing nothing. They're unemployed. She calls them unemployed angels. But if everybody that watches this podcast can at least admit this, there are times in your lives where you've been watched out for in ways that you can't explain. That's what Becky and I are talking about. There's the other side is always helping us on this side. And I use the word this side. You could say we're at the center of a stage of a nice little holographic play that we all are just walk-in actors, and we will walk off. All of us will bow together when this play ends, but we are here for a reason. For what? To help all the other actors that come into the play. Everybody else is coming into this play, and we're here. Let's just take it back to our ancestors. We're here to make our children's children have a better life than we had. And it's happening every single generation. But what's going to happen in such a short period of time is we are going to become a galactic society, meaning that we already have a space program. If you don't know what the secret space program is, or the SSP, just go on the internet and type in stuff. All of what we're talking about here is available. People have been talking about it with our Congress. There's been whistleblowers since the year 2001, and the Disclosure Project by Dr. Stephen Greer. So if you believe that there's no such thing as people from other planets, um, you know, stay asleep, but everybody else is waking up. You may want to actually at least start looking around and realizing that if we're in a place of I don't believe, that's okay. That's a good place to be in. And I prefer to be in a place where I know that I don't know. What do I don't know? I don't know so many things, but I know within my vessel that I exist at higher dimensional levels, that I exist in other bodies, that I'm getting information coming from my higher selves. I know that. Why? Come live in this rig.
Because you
Everybody's
experience
getting
it,
messages.
because you have lived experience. You could read everything you want in a book, but you have experienced it. And that's the thing, is like, I do believe scientific proof is coming. We've talked about that, but I actually don't need scientific proof because I'm experiencing it. And so it's really for other people. I needed like you to stand outside with me like you did in the parking lot and to bring me this information. But it wasn't that I just trusted you, Mark. I'm human. I didn't just trust what you were saying. I had to experience this with you, with Andrea. I had to read it in a book. It all came to me at once. And then the other thing, when you're talking about Congress, the timing of me meeting you and all this information coming in, guess what? Couple weeks later is when it's in Congress where they're talking about this, and it's Stephen Greer and all of this. And it's like, I didn't orchestrate all of that. That information all came to me because I was ready to hear that information, because I believe that my work here, we all have a piece in this great awakening, every sentient being. My work here is to share this frequency, to activate people into this frequency, to show what is possible in these human bodies, and to learn. I had to learn as much as possible, as fast as possible, without striving. And I would call you and kind of tell you everything that was, because it was happening. It was like, okay, let's show her this. Let's show her about angels. Let's show her about the Egyptians. Let's show her about the ETs. And I'm still learning, but in the beginning, it was like fast track everything. And it made no sense. That's how I realized. I was like, wait, something really big is happening here, because it was happening so exponentially, through that activation of grief, that portal, but really through Kira. When she died, I immediately was like, it was like watching myself. Now, anybody that's new, I shared over and over, it was very, very sad. I meet you at maybe 9 or 10 months. I came with my daughter, Maddie and Abby. But even at 10 months, I was doing pretty good. But I think it's because I knew the truth. I've embodied that separation is an illusion. And Kira led me there, along with, like you said, my higher selves. Really, I believe it's all of humanity. And that we are waking up, that our DNA, you talked about that. And that was very interesting to me, because Becky, of however many years ago, if you would have said our DNA is being activated or we're being upgraded, I would have been like, really? Okay, you are crazy. But not only did you tell me this, you brought this information to me, but Kira started sending me tons of signs around this. Like, it was coming in from all over the place. So not only am I receiving this information, the DNA being upgraded, I'm experiencing an upgraded experience that I could have never imagined. So it's the things that I've heard you talk about, that in the new earth or in the fifth dimension, we experience just pure love, right? Just pure
Yes.
love. And that is what most of the time, now, it doesn't mean that I don't go back and forth between both, but I experience that, like, no separation between anybody, and that is just what I walk around and live, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, thank you so much." Like, my daughter died, which is so tragic, but it's like there aren't really words for what has happened here because it's so much bigger than her, and she's
Yeah.
still right here and everything.
Mm.
And of course, that was her role. I just like, and she's connecting with you, and it's just so beautiful. And to be able to describe it in that way is just this evidence of this greater thing that is happening here,
Yeah.
right here in this period of time in history.
You're being a really good bridge. And this podcast is a really good bridge. And bridging is something that all of us can do. So we have friends and family who live in a very dense. They're usually at the higher octaves of the third dimensional reality, and just think of the third dimension as not just up, down, right, left, forwards, backwards, and then time would sort of be like the fourth dimension. But think of it like this: think of the third dimensional reality as being a fear-based matrix that that we have been in and can now observe ourselves if we ever get caught in that. Where because if you're in heaven right now, this is just out of the Course of Miracles. If you're in heaven right now, dreaming that you're separate from God, that's what caused the universe anyway. We're living in a universe of separation. But quite frankly, when you're having the experience that there's no separation at all, you're not just out of the third and in the fourth, which is there's just no fear, but in the fifth, you actually see everything as yourself. And at the Global Center for Christ Consciousness, this is where I attend church on Sunday. I'm a chaplain over there. The speaker who speaks there on Sundays, Michael Murdad said that, and he put it perfectly. He said, we used to always think that God is in everything. And really, what it is God's behind everything. So, God is actually the source that is behind everything, but it's not in everything because everything that's in separation is still an illusion. So, and God doesn't live in the illusion. God is the source that is outside of the illusion. But
I'll probably have to go
everything,
back and listen to what you just said multiple times to make
yeah,
sense of it cognitively, but I
sure.
embody what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So,
It's,
it's so beautiful what you just said. The
mhm,
description. I think
mhm,
about it sometimes as, it's like source we're all experiencing ourselves. So we're all pieces. We think that we are separate, but we are not. And and you could tell me if I'm describing it correctly, in that dimension that I experience where that Kira calls it feel good always.
mhm,
There is no separation. Everything, this table sitting in front of me, the computer, that's why when you speak to me for the first time on the phone, you're like, I love you. And I was like, I love you too. And I love everyone and everything,
mhm.
no matter what, no exceptions. Now, that doesn't mean that I can't come back in and have judgment, but I'm so aware of it very fast. And that is the difference is the awareness of this little dream that we are in, being aware and not being in fear. And I've worked on my fear for many years through a lot of practices. You and I both are in 12 step.
Mhm.
And so that was one of the things. Yoga is one of the things, many practices, the Course of Miracles, many practices working on the fear. But eventually, when Kira died, that for me, it was that soul crushing experience that really got me going really deep in, plus the activation from Kira, all of these beings to be this bridge. She would say, you are the oracle, you are, which is being the bridge between heaven and earth, carrying
Mm,
this information. And people could just talk to me and start experiencing a lot of synchronicities, people listening to this podcast because of this literal frequency, this transmission that is coming through on this specific podcast. All of that happens. And It doesn't totally make sense to me as a human being here, but it's something that I have experienced, and I believe we're all headed there. I don't believe it. I know it. I mean, I'm not worried about my children. I'm not worried about anything because the fear is gone, and that because it's only love is real, and there's no separation. So what do I have to be afraid of? And it's such a gift.
Well, remember, the Matrix is inviting you to be afraid of everything. So,
Yeah.
and I mean, I'm talking about the outer reality that we perceive other people are in. There's a great quote, and Wayne Dyer said this didn't even come from him. When I change the way that I look at things, those things that I look at change. What I found is that when I actually live like you're saying, like I'm just not afraid anymore. I mean, first off, I, I know, feel within the core of my being, I'm immortal. I'm just temporarily in a body. We're all going to die. Everybody's going to die. Nobody gets out alive. And why not feel good always? Why not have as much fun as I possibly can while I have the honor of having a vessel here to have this beautiful experience? And by the way, I happen to be the center of my stage. So if you can think about multidimensional, I'm the center of my stage, but since everything else is myself, then the best that I can do is to be of service to everything else. Why? As long as I'm taking care of my vessel, don't get me wrong, it's God, self, others. I certainly take care of my vessel because I can't help others if I can't keep this rig in the best shape that I possibly can. But that just requires meditation, prayers, yoga, sit ups, push ups, all that stuff. I do all that in the morning before I even go to my meditation 12-step meeting at the church. I really take care of my body and get myself in alignment. And then I get to go and be of service to other people because sitting in a 12-step meeting, I'm being all three things on the coin. I'm being of service, I'm participating in unity consciousness, and I'm also helping other people, especially these newcomers, in recovery. And recovery doesn't mean not drinking or using drugs or whatever it was that got people into the 12 step. Recovery means actually recovering the person that I once was and I stopped being. I get to recover who I am, or as we say, remember. I get to pull back in the pieces that I am, and stop giving my power away. And man, did I give my power away to stuff outside of me for a long time. Going back to the story of bridging, what I've learned most recently, and I can't figure where in linear time it happened. It could have been a year, could have been 5 years ago, but bridging is where I can be up there in a place of feel good always, and there's other people that are not there. I can actually help. Um, my biological father would love this, but I can actually give them a hand up and pull them up. And there's an old saying in the 12 step groups, but we're not all down at the same time. So all of us can actually help each other because from Jesus's point of view in the Course of Miracles, there's only one Christ here, and it's everything. Everything is the Christ, but what's behind the Christ is God. God is behind all things in physical form. So let me better just say that God is not in all physical form. It's behind the physical form that gave the physical form the source to create physical form. Let's
To
just
create this
kind of put it like
illusion of
that.
separation.
Yeah. Did that make sense?
So, yeah, it makes sense. Yes. So, to me, and if it doesn't make sense to somebody else, they could rewind and listen to it again. So,
You getcha?
you talk about another thing that has come to me very much, which is, that we do have to take care of ourselves because I know that for me, I experienced feeling maybe I was selfish if I was taking care of myself or I needed to be helping others, that we can sometimes, and I am helping others. That is, I mean, what we're doing right here. It's kind of like the whole day, but sometimes it can get off balance where in my past, where maybe helping others before helping myself. And so doing the practices that you're talking about, meditating and, doing your physical push-ups, exercise, putting water in your body. I know I've been to your house. I know you do all kinds of practices, that you
Mhm.
fast sometimes, that you do this, that you take care of this really beautiful body that you've been given. And I do the same, body, mind, and spirit. And then so I can go out and help others,
Mhm.
that we listen. And I think that's a huge message to everyone, even, people listening to these podcasts, reading books like Bringers of the Dawn, all of that stuff kind of helps us bring in this information. And then we take care of ourselves with rest, water, sleep. And then we go out and help the world. And all those things can kind of happen simultaneously.
Mhm.
But to pay attention when we do get into that fear-based reality, that we can watch other people experience it. I try not to judge it and just share, try to bring people up into the feel good always by just sharing my own experience, because that's all that I could do. That we
Yeah.
can question everything, right? That we can question that. The matrix, you said bam. Kira always says, break apart the matrix. I see X's in the sky all the time. She also says XXX, which is, I see X's everywhere, which is that breaking apart the matrix. It is questioning, questioning these belief systems, questioning what we're being fed. I am really watching the world kind of crumble right now around. It doesn't mean that the world is crumbling. I'm just saying that's kind of what I'm seeing, is that some people in my little world that I'm creating are coming to me, sharing, and also the beings on the other side are showing me signs ahead of time, big world events, and that I can, what is my job here? I have to ask myself, why are you showing me this ahead of time? Because I know they're not showing me to be afraid. That's not why
Right.
they're showing me, but they're showing me so that I can stay calm, and remember that we have nothing to be afraid of, that it starts within us, right? And that when we begin to break out of this illusion of separation and come into that unity over and over and share it with other people, then we can be side by side living with other people that are having that experience. They are having the experience of fear, and it's like living in another reality.
Yeah.
It's like living in another reality, and it feels pretty good to be in the where I sit. And it seems to me that everyone is living in this peace and love. When you're living in it, it feels like the only people that find me are those people.
Everybody's in it. I don't listen to any. Forgive me. Let me clarify that. I listen to people talking about what other people are talking about, and I kind of get, if you want to say, news or the outer reality in that respect. And but remember this: it's always the darkest right before the dawn. So the outer reality before we actually, and I believe there's going to be an event that's going to catalyze the entire planet. We'll know who we were before the event, what happened, and what it's like after the event. Kind of like a 12 step, you know, um,
So, like, you
uh,
think? I mean, we don't know, but like
I don't know.
examples would be like a
Solar.
solar flare or
Oh
a
yeah, yeah,
flash of
yeah, yeah.
light.
I'm going to go with a little podcaster by the name of Ann Ducker says a rainbow wave of light is going
Yeah.
to come in and flood this planet, and everybody will be activated at that time. Our DNA will be activated, and we'll all be able to go, oh, wow, I had this dream of separation, that I was separate from everything and everybody. And now I realize that I'm connected to everything and everybody. And it will be something like that. I don't know what God's got in store, but I can tell you, if Hollywood can come up with a really good hero's journey and a happy ending, imagine what God can do, or
Yes, thank
what's
you.
the source behind all this can do. Because I can tell you, there's enough people praying for shift or change, or it's my favorite thing. I was just putting it down. What's my favorite thing in life? Change. It's so consistent and it's always happening. And it reminds me that I know that I don't know that much, because change sometimes has me go, oh, I no longer see reality like this. I now see it like this. It's brilliant. Um, the way that my life is, it's done for me, Becky, including this conversation we're having. All I did was a prayer before the conversation. Didn't even consider what was going to be spoken about. Although I do like, by the way, I just bought a new Subaru Outback. For those that don't know, Subaru means Pleiades, as in Pleiadians and as in constellation in Japanese. In all of our history, all throughout this planet, my background, I went to college for anthropology and renewable natural resources, but the the ancients have been telling us for a long time. The stories are embedded in our history. We're a lot more than we believe that we are. And we've had technologies on this planet way beyond that what we have right now. And we've had these societies that have been built up and collapsed, built up and collapsed. It's in history. If you don't believe that, just look around. People are talking about it all over, including people like Becky right here on this podcast.
Yeah. That we're in this massive, great awakening, new earth, whatever
Information.
you wanna call it. Like you and I say, it's like an embodied experience, as we all continue to, yeah, like, wake up from the dream. And, you mentioned Ann Tucker. Then she does talk about this rainbow wave of light. One of the things about that is that I believe we're being upgraded now. I'm being upgraded. We're all being upgraded, especially people that are listening to this podcast as you start experiencing more synchronicity, more things that, you think of something, it happens, more merged consciousness with other people, that
Mhm.
that light that is coming, that frequency that is coming into our bodies, like maybe your body does, maybe you do get sick, maybe you experience some physical symptoms, we call them like ascension symptoms, maybe you experience those things, but I believe that we are being woke up. I was woke up kind of fast, and I continue to be. We're all continuing this ladder of ascension so that if and when something like this rainbow wave of light, that our bodies are more attuned to this frequency. It's why I end up in Sedona, because first time I go to Sedona, I'm so activated, like, I'm just like, I feel like so giddy. And then I think I've gone 4 times now, it doesn't feel like that. It's kind of like that everywhere. It doesn't mean that I can't be activated into a new frequency, but that when we do experience this maybe event, I don't know, we are being prepared now.
Mhm.
And always tell my listeners and anybody that will listen, when people go, "Well, what does it mean? What does it mean?" The signs. And I kind of I surrender to this moment, because in this moment, this is what's happening. You and I are on a call, but I do trust the knowing that I have that it is done. That we are just like you have so beautifully put it, we're just walking towards it, right?
Mhm.
This peace and love and anchoring, like you said, God's hero's journey into this dimension. And it's that belief that we're co-creating together, that it's not, you know, not woo woo. It's just the reality of what's happening that's been talked about for years. We're just right. We're so lucky to be alive in bodies to experience this, right?
We're all walking each other home one step at a time.
We are all
What it's
walking each
mean,
other home one
home is
step
no
at a time.
separation. Yeah, home is where there's no separation, and meaning that I don't feel separate from that's why I've been super comfortable. I can't say in linear time when it started. Could have been a decade ago, could have been half a decade ago, could have been a month ago. I don't know. Linear time has ended for me, and it's just sort of in the intentional now. And that's right out of those two books, Earth and Bringers of the Dawn. They talk about living in the intentional now. You put your intentions out, and then whatever comes to you, be grateful for, because if it's effortless, that's God. That's your higher powers guiding you. Um, with that being said, I just sort of live in a space where I let things be done for me. And I have, I always tell, no matter what I'm doing, I always tell people I'm so grateful to be in this experience with you. And I can tell people I love you. Why? I read this in the Course in Miracles. Matter of fact, on page 28, it says this. It's real simple. It says, I am here only to be truly helpful. I am here to represent him who sent me. I do not have to worry about what to say or what to do because he who sent me will direct me. I am content to be wherever he wishes, knowing he goes there with me. And don't let the he throw you off. It's written in Shakespeare pentameter because the woman who channeled this was really into Shakespeare. And so Jesus put this all through Shakespeare pentameter, which means that they use the masculine he, human. People go, human. Does that mean a man? No, human is actually humans on planet Earth. So when they use the word man in vernacular, they're really just saying human, not man and versus woman. Every time we get lost in a color of somebody's vessel or the gender of their vessel and all that stuff, you're living in a state of separation. I embrace anything that's being said. But the Course in Miracles is really clear about this. It's only my blocks to the awareness of love's presence which causes separation anyway. That's what's going on. And I'm doing my best to remove the blocks to the awareness of love's presence, which is my natural inheritance.
Which brings us to the last two questions. How do you find peace? How do you feel good always? What do you do? So you've already shared these practices that you have of yoga and meditation and the things you do in the morning, but what do you do to help yourself, if you're sharing with someone that's listening to remove those blocks that keep you feeling separate?
Well, so happiness, peacefulness, joyfulness are come from the inside of me. Like I feel that inside. And I love the Abraham Lincoln quote. So Abraham Lincoln does a speech. Reporters come up to him, Mr. Lincoln, do you believe that you made all of your constituents happy? He turned and said, people are about as happy as they make up their mind to be. And he turned away like, how could you think that I'm responsible for people's happiness? He was a very wise soul, let me just say, and took on a lot. But that's the truth. I'm responsible for my happiness, joyfulness, peacefulness, and it's all inside of me no matter what. And watch a guru. There's stuff going, just blowing up, stuff going on outside. Um, and this, the guru is like, "Whoa, this is so beautiful. Look at this. It's lovely." Why they're not affected by the outer reality because their inner reality is actually what's keeping them stable. Work. I'll give people tips. I didn't know prayer and meditation was my ticket to becoming a completely different person. But when I began to pray and I began to meditate, it changed everything for me.
Yes, beautiful. And that has been my experience also, the cornerstone. For me, it also started with that prayer and meditation and all the little pieces and I know you do so much. It's
Mm.
beyond you just showing up at 12-step meetings because you're doing Course of Miracles. I mean, everywhere you go, if somebody asks, "How are you?" Your response is, "I'm grateful." I mean, you're just embodying this beauty. So the last question is, what does it mean to you to feel good always?
Mm. So, and by the way, I can certainly say that I can get I can get a flu. I can drop something heavy on my toe and scream expletives out of my mouth. I'm a human on planet Earth just like everybody else. But what I don't do is I don't carry my story of whatever event happens that it affects me. It does temporarily, including, being sick or in bed or whatever. These events affect me temporarily, but I don't sit and focus on the event as if it's going to control me. I actually tell myself how I feel good always is I tell myself that I'm just grateful to have a body. There are people that I know people on the other side are like, yeah, you guys have the bodies down there. And we're like, yeah, but we're on the front lines of all of this stuff. That's a story too. I eliminate
Yeah.
the story. And by the way, something I'm just going to make a suggestion for those people that go prayer and meditation. I don't even know where to start. Here's what I started with my first prayer: God, please let me be able to meditate for 2 minutes. Then I set my timer for 2 minutes and I just shut my eyes and I was quiet. And it started like that. I now do 22 minutes in the morning. I do 44 minutes of meditation daily, and I have prayers that go along. Mostly the prayers that I have today are for my parents, for their protection, and also for the planet, to have God wake us up from this dream of separation. That's all. And
I
um,
love it.
I'm gonna enjoy my 22 minutes of. And by the way, here's what I learned: I'm not my thoughts. My thoughts are a stream going by, and I'm the one that fishes from that stream and says, "Yeah, that's right." And let me tell you, one of the things that I choose not to do anymore is to go take a shitty thought and go, "That's right. That's what it is." It's a shitty thought. Just because it went by doesn't mean I have to take it. So I look for the thoughts to be happy and grateful for, and then
Yeah.
that keeps me feeling good always.
Thank you for that. We do get to choose and we can feel good. That's like the myth is it's like toxic positivity. We can feel good. We really
Mm,
can. That doesn't mean that we don't cry or get sad or get sick or whatever. It just means that we question those thoughts, those ideas, those belief systems that leave us in pain, uncomfortable, miserable. I like to feel good. And that's how it's something we do to help us all, humanity ascend, right?
yeah.
So,
My litmus test is it a loving thought or is it a fear-based thought? And by the way, the cartoons got it right. There's an angel over here and there's a devil over here. The devil's always telling me it talks loudest, it talks first, and it never tells the truth. And the angel's very subtle and goes, "Why don't you just see what's loving out there and focus on that?" That's about all it says. But I think the cartoons got it right. I have now determined who's who in the voices of my mind and who I will choose to listen to. And again, I lean in to people like yourself, Becky. Why? You're changing the world. One soul at a time, you're changing the world. And I really appreciate what you're up to with that thing.
yeah, same. I feel
Yeah.
the same about you. I'm so grateful to have found you. And just today, I was just so excited to spend time with you anytime.
Mhm.
And we're so lucky, and that we're all doing this together. Every sentient being is doing this together. We all have a piece, to help us move into this beautiful energy that both you and I experience. That anybody listening could witness just how easy it is. It really is easy, but putting in these practices. So thank you for sharing everything that you shared today. I'm going to include down in the show notes. I know you have a YouTube that I already listened to multiple things on there. It's not current, but maybe you're going to make it current. It's current what's on there, but you haven't put anything out, and you're just filled with this
Good.
beautiful wisdom. And I'll link to that and other ways that people can find you. And yeah, thank you everybody for tuning in, and tune in next time. Thanks.
Becky,
Yeah,
if nobody's told you today, I love you so much.
I love
Again, you're
you.
such a dear to me. Yeah, I really mean that. Again, I'm so, so grateful for you and what you bring to the table for everybody that you touch. So keep doing it.
Thank you. I need to hear it, and we need to tell people. I do, and the
Mhm.
feeling is mutual. Okay.
Everybody out in TV land, I love you too.
I love them all too. They're amazing. Thank you for listening. We all do this together. Everybody listening, yeah, go ahead and follow in the podcast if you haven't followed on your podcast platform, or subscribe on YouTube. Share it with a
Mhm.
friend. Actually, just go out and spread this energy and listen to this podcast again if you need to remember, just to remind yourself. So I love you. Thank you. Until next time. Bye bye.
Peace on earth.
Peace.